Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off quickly talking about Emulicious. Now, Emulicious is an emulator written in Java, so it's compatible with a whole bunch of different operating systems. And it's for the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, Game Gear, and MSX, and it just got a brand new update. So this update is small but nice, and if you're on Linux, you may notice some UI improvements depending on your window manager. That's one of the big things for this release. And speaking about quick updates, next up we're quickly talking about Mesa Turnip. So if you've got a Snapdragon CPU with an Adreno GPU in your Android device, well, there's brand new Mesa Turnip drivers that have just dropped. Version 24.3.0 revision 1, and this does include the Adreno 735 GPU. So someone here over on Reddit Emulation on Android says just tested it. It has reduced graphical glitches in Tears of the Kingdom. And then someone says this immediately helped a lot of games on my Fold 6. Good release. Someone else says basically no difference in Pokemon Scarlet on my S24 Plus, but glad it's being worked on. And someone else says, tried on SNK Heroine's character model in battle still not fixed. So by the sounds of this one, results will vary, which is completely normal for most Mesa Turnip releases. Next up, we're talking about ZPF. Now, ZPF is a brand new shmup for the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis. It started out as a Kickstarter that just recently closed and completely smashed its goal. It raised over $200,000 and they were only looking for $15,000. Now this game is obviously being released for the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis, but it's also heading to PC via Steam, and since it completely smashed its stretch goals, it's heading to the Nintendo Switch and now Xbox. Now ZPF is set to release in 2025, and based on the prices of the Kickstarter tiers here, for example the Steam key being set at $15, I'm assuming the final release of this thing is going to be fairly inexpensive compared to AAA titles. And speaking about new releases for retro consoles, next up we're talking about Castlevania Bloodlines. Now this game is in the process of being ported to the SNES and it's shaping up very nicely. I'll drop a link to this YouTube video in the description below and I do recommend checking it out. Now the person behind this port does not have a firm release date just yet. However, it does appear they are using ZSNES for some testing. Next up we're talking about Bungie. Now Bungie, the game studio, published an update that took the internet by storm the other day, and that's because they announced they're laying off 220 of its staff, which is about 17% of the workforce. Furthermore, Bungie said they are deepening their integration with Sony Interactive Entertainment, working to integrate 155 of their roles, which is roughly 12%. Now, as grim as this is to say, layoffs in the video game industry over the last while is absolutely nothing new. However, the employees have been taking to Twitter or X to voice their displeasure here. And a lot of them, or at least a number of them, are calling for Bungie CEO Pete Parsons to step down. For example, someone here says step down, and without the giant Sony payout, this isn't on Sony, this is squarely on the failure of leadership, plain and simple. I may agree with that quote. I mean, if you think about it, if a company is not doing well, the CEO is responsible for guiding, directing, and moving that company forward. And if they're not doing a good job of it and having to cut people because of it, a massive amount of people, you think that their job would be under evaluation, but what do I know? But moving on, and we're talking about an even bigger company, and that is Valve, and this is good news. We're talking about Proton Experimental, and Valve has just dropped a brand new version of Proton Experimental with a whole bunch of different fixes. Now, Proton Experimental gets updated quite a bit. For example, the last time we talked about it here, the King of Fighters 13 Steam Edition was listed as finally playable. However, sometimes with Proton Experimental there are some issues, and this update here fixes some of those previous issues. For example, controllers now work again in Sonic Forces, and Grid Autosport and Grid 2 are playable again. And furthermore, it fixed a regression that caused Mafia 2 to crash on launch. So if you are using Proton Experimental and have been having some issues, it may be worth checking out the latest version of it. And continuing to talk about Valve, next up we're talking about a brand new update for the Steam Client Beta, and this may be very cool if you've got a Steam Deck or if you've got Steam friends who have a Steam Deck. The friends list will now show a Steam Deck icon instead of a gamepad icon if the other user is playing on a Steam Deck. I think that is super cool. It's completely not really useful in any sort of gaming sense, but at the same time, you can tell who's using a Steam Deck and who's not. Next up, we're quickly talking about the Nothing Phone 2A Plus. Now, we talked about the 2A Plus just the other day. I think it was in the last video when Nothing teased the 2A Plus. Well, now they've officially unveiled the 2A Plus, and it was basically everything we thought it was going to be. It features a MediaTek Dimensity 7350 Pro CPU in it. It has two rear-facing 50 megapixel cameras, one front-facing 50 megapixel camera. And the price on this is very attractive, $399. It will have Android 14, it's got 12 gigs of RAM, but I think the biggest downside to this is that it's got 256 gigs of storage, which I think is a little bit lacking, but at the same time at this price point, I think it might be understandable. Next up, I'm not quite sure on how I feel about this one. Let me know your thoughts about this upcoming story in the comments below, but apparently here the Reddit CEO wants Microsoft to pay for the use of content in AI training. Apparently Reddit has already blocked Bing from accessing content on the platform. I don't know many people who use Bing, but at the same time they've blocked it. Anyways here, I'm not sure on how I feel about this one, because if Microsoft was paying Reddit, I would say that Reddit should be paying its users because that's who's providing all the content. Next up, we're quickly talking about Guns of Fury. Now, Guns of Fury is an upcoming game set to release sometime this year. It is an indie game, and they've just unveiled some brand new gameplay for this. I'll drop a link to the Steam store page in the description below. This game to me looks absolutely incredible. I mean, it blends Metal Slug here with Castlevania and also potentially Metroid, depending on how you're viewing the game here. And I think this game is going to be a fantastic action platformer. I've got high hopes for it, and I'm following it. Let me know your thoughts about this gameplay in the comments below and whether or not you'd be interested in picking it up. But moving on, and next up we're talking about Nintendo Switch emulation with Ryujinx, and Ryujinx got a few small updates here that may fix some headaches for some people. So people with AMD graphics cards may like version 1.1.1362. It fixes a crash on floor 15 of Luigi's Mansion 3. Version 1363 fixes the red tint on the new Denpa Men. They say the game still won't run without ignore missing services. And version 1364, I'm going to butcher this one, but I'm going to try here, fixes Kuro no Kiseki 2 crashing on startup. Next up, this one is a weird one. Now we're talking about Logitech, and for reference here, I am a fan of Logitech. I mean, I use their stream cam as the main camera on this channel. I use some of their lighting, and I use some of their other products. Anyways, here, I don't think I can get behind this idea, and I'm kind of wondering what the heck the executive is even thinking. But apparently they've got an idea for a Forever Mouse that requires a subscription. Now, they talk about the price of this Forever Mouse set to be around $200, which doesn't necessarily seem too far out of the ballpark considering it's meant to last forever. And if it's meant to be a little bit more durable and repairable, they might be onto something here. But at the same time, it requires a subscription to software, which I don't agree with at all. Now, to be honest with you, because I always try to be unbiased here, I might not be the best person to weigh my opinion in on the matter. I don't like to use bundled software with stuff. For the Logitech Stream Cam, I don't use any Logitech software. For the Logitech lights I have, I don't use any Logitech software for them. I've got an Alienware mouse here. I don't use Alienware software. I just find the mouse extremely comfortable, so I use it. And I've got a keyboard that I'm not going to say the brand name of it, but I don't use software for that either. I try not to use bundled software at all. I find it cumbersome and just flat out annoying, especially considering I'm on Linux. Anyways, here, I wouldn't pay a dime for a subscription for bundled software for a product. Let me know your thoughts about this one. I think that's a crazy thing to ask for. However, the whole repairability, durability part is what I'm way more interested in. If it's comfortable to use and it's repairable and durable, and it doesn't require software in order to work, then I may be more interested in something like this. Next up here, we're quickly talking about running with scissors. Now, you may know running with scissors as the studio behind games like Postal. Well, this was one of the recent tweets or X's. If you can't afford our games, she may help you until you can. And this person's name may have something to do with activities. It may be something like Fitgirl. So it seems as if running with scissors is not opposed to piracy as long as it can get its games out there. Running with Scissors Bio on Twitter says, "We develop outrageous games just for the hell of it, and we regret nothing." Now, I am not going to lie, I am very curious about this one, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I may do a poll over on the community tab. But basically, I'm wondering, would this increase your opinion on a game developer if they don't care about piracy as opposed to one who slaps de nouveau on all their stuff? And speaking about games, next up is a friendly heads up about a huge LEGO bundle over on Humble Bundle. There's 19 games altogether here. Right now it says pay at least 20 Canadian dollars for these things. And if you're a fan of LEGO games, or I guess if you're a fan of gaming in general, this may be something worth checking out. I'll drop a link in the description below. Next up, we're talking about PS4 emulation with, no surprise, Shad PS4. Now, Shad PS4 should be called Chad PS4 by now. It's doing incredible. I'll drop a link to Brutal Sam's YouTube video in the description below, and feel free to check it out. It shows Red Dead Redemption up and running very, very well in version 0.1.1. Now, obviously, the game is not playable. There are still some frame rate issues. There's still a lot of graphical issues, and everything is not near perfect. But at the same time, for PS4 emulation or PS4 translation, or however you want to phrase it here, Shad PS4 is doing awesome. I mean, I'm not going to lie here. The advancements Shad PS4 are making right now are a lot more than I thought they were going to be. I didn't think we'd be seeing this at all in 2024, but I guess 2024 is the year of PS4 emulation advancements. And speaking about emulation advancements, next up we're talking about PS Vita emulation with Vita3k. And the team over at Vita3k have just posted a 3-year progress report. I'll drop a link to this one in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. It's well written and has a ton of great detail. I mean, I get asked quite a bit on what's going on with Vita3k, why is development slow, why are Android releases few and far in between. But at the same time, behind the curtain, this emulator is making improvements in leaps and bounds. The development team is hard at work. They're making a lot of improvements here. And this report goes to show everything they have done. I mean, they've implemented stuff like Vulkan support, which is not easy, upscaling support, memory mapping, texture replacements, and even more. And on top of that, compatibility has also improved. I mean, right now they're sitting at 57% of PS Vita games listed as fully playable. I mean, I think Vita3k is awesome. The Android port alone of it is incredible. MacDo is doing wonders. Anyways, the whole development team deserves a shout out. This is an awesome emulator, and I can't wait to see what they get up to next. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today, and I still had some to talk about, but we'll talk about that stuff tomorrow. Let me know your thoughts about anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.